Welcome everybody to this short video introducing ethics of care. This is part of Ethics of Care and Human Nature Relations, a micro-module hosted by the Embassy of Good Science and developed by Ari for Green. In this short video, we're going to introduce care ethics or ethics of care. Care ethics is an ethical theory that takes a relational and responsibility-bound approach to ethics and decision-making. It explores the significance of human interdependency, vulnerability, and responsibility, and recognizes the value of caring labor and practices. So this ethical theory highlights the affective dimension of morality, but also the inevitability of dependence and interdependence, the importance of caretaking, and the relational and contextual nature of ethical questions and ethical problems. So let's zoom in. Care ethics emphasizes that relationships and care are fundamental to what makes us human. So care ethicists view moral agents as deeply and inextricably embedded within networks of ethically significant relationships and emphasize interdependency and care as moral foundations. But why do relationships matter? Well, caring relations, and by that we mean relationships in which people provide and receive care, are ethically fundamental to humanities. And taking this perspective acknowledges that most ethical dilemmas are relational in nature, and that our moral obligations and decisions are rooted in relationships between people. Therefore, by doing that, this approach underlines that relations are of fundamental importance in determining what is right and what is wrong. So in approaching ethical dilemmas, for instance. This framework is rooted in feminist and indigenous ethics. So care ethics challenges the dominant Western colonial and patriarchal paradigm that defines self-worth through individualistic self-realization and economic productivity. Care ethics stands in opposition to values such as competition and domination, which are often seen as central of market dynamics, and offers a critical voice that invites us to challenge the idea of the individual seen as a separate and purely rational being, able to make decisions solely based on the support of abstract principles. So in contrast, this view supports us in realizing that responsibilities often arise from embeddedness in social and historical contexts, and not just from freely entered agreements or situations. And in this respect, care ethics encourages us to see ethics not solely as the domain of objective, detached reason, but on the contrary, this approach suggests that a focus on relationships offers an alternative, an equally legitimate form of moral reasoning. So care ethics thus moves from an obligation-based to a responsibility-based approach, placing care at the foundation of morality. It highlights the relational dimension of moral life, emphasizing the inevitability of dependence and interdependence. And by doing so, it recognizes that individuals and the environment are mutually dependent for survival and for flourishing. So this perspective then understands caring as the practice of exercising responsibilities and virtues that sustain and enhance relationships and that sustain life on this planet, contributing to the overall well-being and flourishing within interconnected networks. So, care work, though, should not be romanticized. While often fulfilling, care can create tensions between caregivers and care recipients or among recipients with different needs. Historically, the notion of care has also been misused to justify paternalistic and violent policies. In addition to this, power and privilege have significantly shaped how care labor is valued. Manual care work has often been devalued and disproportionately assigned to women, Black and Indigenous people, and people of color. So Tronto, who is one of the ethicists, philosophers that are representative of this theoretical approach to ethics, well, she argues against essentializing care as morally virtuous work exclusive to women or to the working class, emphasizing instead that care is a shared civic responsibility. So, but what do we talk about when we talk about care? So let's define what we mean by care. So to do so, we will use this definition, which is provided at Fisher and Tronto, which defines care as follows. So care on the most general level, they suggest care to be viewed as a species activity that includes everything that we do to maintain, continue, and repair our world so that we can live in it as well as possible. That world includes our bodies, ourselves, and our environment, all of which we seek to interweave in a complex life-sustaining web. So let's try to unpack this. Care is what makes us human. So it is a characteristic of our species. It is an action that enacts responsibility for interconnected beings. So care can also be viewed as a virtue, can be considered a virtue. And on this, I refer to you to other modules that we have on the Embassy of Good Science talking about virtue ethics. So care represents a moral character or a predisposition that supports human flourishing if viewed within this framework. But caring always demands responsibility and reflection because it involves understanding and prioritizing needs and navigating power dynamics, since caregivers typically possess some ability that care receivers do not. So, as Nodding and Weil noticed, establishing a caring relationship presupposes meeting the other, not by putting them in a box or by categorizing them as belonging to a certain group, but by understanding what they're going through. So finally, we can also reflect on what Tronto tells us. She tells us that caring about then involves the recognition in the first place that care is necessary, but it involves also noting the existence of a need and making an assessment that these needs should be met. So ethical action involves recognition, responsibility, and response. So according to Tronto, who has recently added a fifth phase to the originally developed framework, caring unfolds in 5 phases. The first phase is caring about. So this entails recognizing and paying attention to a need for care and requires a suspension of one's interest and the ability to genuinely look from the perspective of the one who is in need of care. The second phase is caring for. So the willingness to respond to this need. And that involves taking on the responsibility to act and to meet the need which we have recognized. The third phase is caregiving. So that's the direct action, the work and the concrete action of providing care, which includes then the practical aspects of caregiving, of the process of giving care. The fourth principle is care receiving. So is the reaction to the process and the evaluation and observation of how the care is met by the care receiver. And then the fifth one is caring with, which talks about conscious and democratic practices. And this is a more recent addition that emphasizes that the moral dimension of care and suggests that care must be consistent with democratic values such as justice, equality, and freedom for all. So let's now just summarize briefly what we have said. So care ethics redefines morality as relational and responsibility-based. It recognizes interdependence of people and the planet, and it challenges hierarchies that devalue care work, making it a civic responsibility, and promotes shared responsibility and flourishing. These are some references that you can use to deepen your understanding of this framework. And well, thank you for listening.